We know that the surface of Europa is covered in ice and contaminants, and the geology has something mushy going on. What else do we know about Europa? One thing, and an important parameter we always like to think about when we talk about these bodies, is its density. Its density is somewhere around 3 grams per cubic centimeter. What is 3 grams per cubic centimeter? Well, in rough terms, ice is 1, rock is 3, maybe a little bit higher than 3. Things like iron are more like 5. So what is this? Europa is mostly made out of rock. It's covered in ice, mostly made out of rock. That's interesting and will be important here in a little bit. How do we learn even more? One of the ways we learn about the interior structures of bodies where we've never been to them is by looking at the gravitational signatures during a spacecraft flyby. Imagine that we have Europa and it has some sort of internal structure, let's say a core that's more dense than the other parts. We can measure things like moment of inertia. We can measure things like the gravitational distribution by sending spacecraft flying right by it, measuring the gravitational pull in all directions. And if you remember, if it is a perfectly symmetrical body, a spherically symmetrical body, the pull will be the same regardless of what the interior structure is. But if there's any asymmetry, and there is on Europa because the tidal deformation of Jupiter and because it in fact is rotating itself, which gives it a little bit of a bulge, that's enough to give it a little bit of a signature. And if you measure that signature very carefully as you fly by and how strong it is at different locations, you can start to see what the interior structure is. When the Galileo spacecraft did this in some very close flybys, it found that the first maybe 100 kilometers of Europa has a density of something like 1 gram per cc, and the stuff underneath it had a density that was much higher, closer to 3 grams per cc. It didn't really have enough resolution to see if there was a core made out of something like iron, but it definitely could tell that there was low density material at the top. Okay, this is starting to make sense. We have something where we have rock on the inside, mostly rock on the inside, and ice, water, H2O, something on the outside. What these gravitational measurements don't tell us, because they're not precise enough, is whether that is ice or water. It could just be rock with frozen ice in that top 100 kilometers, or maybe, based on the geology, there could be something else going on. What next? This next observation from the Galileo spacecraft is, I just think, one of the most extraordinary, cool ones that there is. It involves a couple things. First, we have Jupiter, which has a magnetic field. The magnetic field of Jupiter is tilted by about 10 degrees. And so as Jupiter spins, the equator of the magnetic field goes from down here, spins around, it comes up to up here, goes in between. Europa, sitting out here, therefore sees a magnetic field. When it's in this direction, it sees a magnetic field that looks like this. When it's in this direction, it sees a magnetic field. If the pole would be here, it sees a magnetic field that looks like this. Can't draw that very well, but the upshot is that as Europa is sitting there, it goes over the course of the rotation of Jupiter. It has the magnetic field is one time going this way, one time going this way. Okay, big deal. One thing we can do is decompose that and say, okay, that's the same as having a constant magnetic field like this, and then just a time-varying magnetic field, sometime going this direction, sometime going in this direction. Time-varying magnetic fields are important. If you put something that is conductive inside of a time-varying magnetic field, you will induce current into that thing that's conductive. And the current that you induce will oppose the change in the magnetic field. This is called Lenz's law in classical electrodynamics. It's also the thing that allows metal detectors to work. Metal detector is a big loop of a magnetic field. If you have metal, it's a conductor. It goes through that loop and there is a varying magnetic field in that loop. The conducting material will develop a current. A current will make a magnetic field opposing the magnetic field of the metal detector. That can be detected. You have realized that you forgot to take off your belt as you're trying to get on the airplane. This is all great. How is it related to Europa? When the Galileo spacecraft flew by Europa, the Galileo spacecraft carries a magnetometer. It measures the magnetic field. And it knows what the magnetic field is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be the background magnetic field of Jupiter, unless Europa has its own magnetic field. And when the spacecraft flew by, they found that Europa looked like it had its own little magnetic field pointing in this direction. Interestingly, this was the exact moment when the change in the magnetic field of Jupiter was in this direction. So it was perfectly consistent with the idea that there's some sort of conductor inside there opposing the magnetic field. But how would you know? It could just be that Europa has a magnetic field weirdly tilted on its side. It wouldn't be the first time. Ganymede itself has a magnetic field, which is strange. It's not tilted on its side. That's good. But it's still strange that it has one. But Europa could have had one. What would you really do to find out? You would go fly by again at a time when the magnetic field was in the opposite direction. The Galileo spacecraft did this just when the magnetic field had flipped around and was now going this way. And what did the Galileo spacecraft measure? It measured a field in this direction. This was, I would say, absolute proof that there is a conductor inside of Europa. Now, conductor in Europa, what does that mean? We have a conductor inside the Earth. The Earth's core is conductive because it has liquid iron in it. So maybe there's just a conductor way down in here. The analysis of the Galileo data showed that that was not good enough, that this conductor is too far away for how strongly the magnetic changes were felt as the Galileo spacecraft were going by. The conductor needed to be quite close to the surface, in fact, in that same region where we knew there was water of some form or another. Pretty exciting. But water's not a conductor. Water can conduct electricity only if it has extra things in it with ions that are free to move around, like salts. So this detection of a conductor on Europa was not just the detection of an ocean right here, but the detection of a salty ocean. And you could even use those measurements to estimate the amount of salt in there. And it's a moderately salty ocean that has to exist in those first 100 kilometers to make the magnetic signatures appear the way they did. This was, given even with all the evidence before, this was the astounding and I just think beautiful proof that there is an ocean on Europa. We often talk about things that are hypotheses and maybe it's this and maybe that. This is not a hypothesis. There is an ocean underneath the ice shell of Europa. And if you could slice Europa open, it would be something like this. You have a rocky interior and it is in contact with an ocean floor, quite thick ocean, and an icy shell on the outside. How deep is that ocean? How do we know how deep it is? We know because we could figure out how big that not very dense water layer was at the very top. And so we know that this layer has to be something like 100 kilometers. It could be a little more, a little less, but 100 kilometers is a good guess. How thick is the ice shell? That's harder to know because we can't tell from the gravity. We can't really tell from the geology, although the geology leads some people to think it's quite thin. But the best estimates these days are that it's roughly maybe 30 kilometers thick. That's pretty thick. It's difficult to reconcile that thickness with some of those features that we saw geologically, unless it's a timing that sometimes it's thinner and sometimes it's thicker as the eccentricity of Europa comes and goes, maybe. And I also just gave an important clue into why there is an ocean at Europa to begin with. Why is this all just not frozen? The answer all comes back to that resonance with Io, Europa, Ganymede. Io is the most volcanically active body in the world because of how much it's being squeezed and released and squeezed and released. Europa does the same thing. It's not as extreme as Io because it's not as close as Io, but this rocky interior is being squeezed and released and squeezed and released. That heat comes out. That heat keeps this water in liquid form. If it were not for that resonance keeping this water in liquid form, this would be a frozen shell sitting on top of the rock. But it's not. It's an ocean, and it's an ocean where there's heat on the inside trying to get out of the rocky core. That sounds a little bit like the ocean floors of the Earth, and maybe these regions where we have heat trying to get out of the ocean floor. If you look at those regions on our own Earth, you see dramatic things. You see these smokers. You see sometimes black smokers and white smokers, depends on the chemistry coming out. But you see this material chemistry happening at these things, heat. It's a pretty exciting place if you're thinking about whether Europa would be a habitable environment or perhaps even an inhabited environment. If you go down to these smokers in these regions where there are these hydrothermal vents at the bottom of our own ocean, you see some amazing things. You see weird plant-like things coming out of there, living off of the chemistry that's at the bottom of the ocean. You even see quite large animals like this. This is not a large octopus, but it's a large scale animal living at the very bottom of the ocean, some of the deepest places in our ocean, and it's thriving down there off of, it's probably eating the things that are eating the chemistry that's happening down there. And this guy, he lives down there too. What does he eat? I think he probably eats anything he wants to eat down there. It's a thriving ecosystem down there, clearly a habitable environment. If Europa had something like this, the nutrients coming up from below, the chemistry being driven by those hot fluids coming through the rock, you could have a thriving community down there. Does this happen? We obviously don't know, and we don't even know that Europa has these hydrothermal vents. If you go away from the hydrothermal vents on the bottom of our ocean, it looks like this. There is not much happening at the bottom of the ocean anywhere other than where there's hydrothermal vents. Here, it's just layers of sediment coming down. It is dead plankton skeletons coming down. There is no life. There is no anything. Maybe Europa's like that. Maybe Europa's the other way. It's difficult to know just by knowing that there's an ocean to know whether it is something that might be habitable.